Get real-time updates, breaking news, and important information directly from the source. With our WhatsApp channel, you'll always know what's happening when it's happening. Joining is easy. Use your phone camera, scan this QR code, tap follow, and that's it. You're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
WESN.
Perception is a hell of a thing. And in one case, one man perceived what was, I guess you could say, the end of the day, an innocent interaction, and it has sparked, dare I say, international controversy in a very minor scale. Because a Jamaican dancehall artist, he was asked on a podcast on YouTube about what islands he likes. And of course, he's going to say Jamaica first. And then they said, well, besides Jamaica. And then he mentioned Trinidad. Except he decided to call out doubles. He decided to call out the fact that, look, one time he was having doubles on the roadside and he threw one for the stray dog and the stray dog didn't want to eat it. He said dogs eat chicken and dogs eat dumplings, but dogs don't eat doubles. And I'm not eating anything dogs don't eat. So, of course, people took to social media and this local dancehall artist, Beanie Man, they took his lyrics, they spoofed him, they made different ways to diss him, bringing in doubles, bringing in his lyrics, etc., etc. Even the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Mimi Brown, had a social media post, I believe yesterday, having a doubles with the caption, Sim Sima. Just to shout out to Beanie Man and say, hey, we enjoy doubles. Here's the interesting thing. One of the responders, apparently, they bring doubles home for their dog. So it's almost as though, not all dogs have the same taste. That's point number one. Living creatures, they don't necessarily all act the same way. But more importantly, one of the things that I didn't necessarily follow Beanie Man's logic on this one. So if dogs don't eat it, I won't eat it. But if dogs eat it, I will eat it. Well, dogs eat a lot of things that I don't think you want to eat. So if that is the be-all and end-all of your logic, because one dog then one doubles, but you will eat whatever dogs eat. I mean, come on. And was it worth essentially upsetting a nation? Because we're not talking about dogs don't eat rice, so I don't eat rice. That's just an example, right? Dogs don't eat wheat, so I don't eat wheat. No, he specifically, in the context of speaking about Trinidad, and apparently he likes Trinidad, he don't like doubles. Not because he doesn't like how it tastes. And this is just one of those things where I think he was speaking without thinking. And it's not that big of a deal. But at the same time, if it was potentially a larger celebrity on a larger platform, we might be even more upset and up in arms over it because that will spread more. Right? I think to some extent, or if the Caribbean diaspora and residents kind of see that, they'll figure it out, right? Everybody probably has their opinion on doubles anyway in the Caribbean. But if it was some international celebrity, And that's going to go viral to people who don't know what doubles is, so they'll just assume, yeah, whatever the crap that is. But now, of course, you know, to what extent is Beanie Man famous enough where he will cross into that threshold? And perhaps this is one of those things where locally, and in a very minor way, I go through this in a very minor way, right? As minor as you can get. But my point is to highlight that because locally people who are known, we're not really celebrities. It's just that there are people who kind of know of us. So I do get people, you know, they know my name on the street, they watch the show, granted. That's about it. I'm not a celebrity, you know. So I'm not famous. There's no crowds or anything like that. But the key point is, people who are known, the problem is, if you say anything, you will be nitpicked. It's not that your words carry more weight. I mean, technically, a show like this, the whole point is to talk. But you would be potentially nitpicked more. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the public personas in our country don't seem to understand, right? It's not that Shawn Michael Small is famous and the population hangs on his every word. It's that Shawn Michael Small puts himself out there. So if he does anything stupid, people will be quick to point out that he does something stupid. If he does anything brilliant that he thinks, I'm speaking in third person for no reason. If I do anything that I think might be brilliant, chances are 99% of the population ain't going to agree with me. So, you know, I need to humble myself and realize it's not about me. But again, if somebody in public sphere does something silly or stupid or says something out of timing, public going to want to let you know, give you a little reality check. And this is in a way, a playful example, but this actually extends to how politicians, elected officials, head of public and private entities of importance, because, hey, the head of a bank, he knows, because he's seeing it in the corporate world around the world, you had to be careful what you say. Look at what happened, rest in peace, Anthony Bourdain, when he was in Trinidad. And there was one segment that had one infamous, you know, set of dialogue that the whole country responded to. They didn't necessarily care. It wasn't a big deal, all of the other conversations he had, right? No one is going to say, oh, that was the most brilliant conversation he had with that Trini, or this Trini, or the other Trini. But that one negative thing that was perceived to be wrong, the country focused in on it. And that's what happens when we have things like police executives, or fire service heads, or defense force heads, or union leaders, heads of various ministries, head of the Police Service Commission, the speaker, chairman of PARIA. When you misspeak, the public is going to take notice of that and nitpick you. Now, one of the things, and rightfully so, the Chief Secretary of the THA, he's been nitpicked. And at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? You're a public person now, you're going to be nitpicked, that is the job. You're going to be nitpicked more than me, that is the job. You have a much bigger responsibility and office than I do. That's the job. Chief Secretary. To be fair though, he has made a good observation with regards to this whole TTPS thing. He's given us an important reminder, regardless of whether you like him or not. If you still think he has things to answer for, I do. But I don't let that necessarily cause me to judge the content harshly or wrongly or inaccurately, because he's saying, look, it's not as though we didn't trust the TTPS because of what's going on with the Commissioner of Police. We didn't trust the TTPS because of a whole host of things, and this just adds to that. The perception, this is the quote, of the police service was eroded before this, so this situation just adds to it. And there is a situation with a car dealer. A judge has to compensate, I believe it's a used car dealer, because the police service essentially had 29 vehicles of hers in their possession over the course of several years. I think she got back some after an initial action that she did, but she didn't get back all. And part of the reporting is apparently some of these vehicles even went missing. They were unable to track down some of the vehicles. 3 of them were reportedly handed over to unknown third parties. And when you are holding evidence or items in custody, whatever it is, when the police have something, these things are not supposed to be allowed to just disappear willy-nilly. And there were other issues with this case, right, including, I think, issues of the trial was set to go ahead undefended as the AG office failed to meet a deadline given by Justice Seepersad for filing witness statements in the case. Now, I do wonder if that's because they didn't really have much of a defense, to be honest. And there were far too many questions, and it's easy to just pay the car dealer to make it go away. She'll get her money back, although to what extent she will get justice to get her money back, right? She's had that money. She's not had it for years. This is why things like interest apply to certain awards, right? Because the money that you would have had 10 years ago, well, between 2013 and 2019, these vehicles were seized. So in some cases, the money that she would have had then would have potentially been able to work for her and grow her wealth and her business, right? Now again, I don't know if she has any other accusations, rumors, speculations, or what have you to cause the police to do these actions. I just know that at the end of the day, it seems as though they had possession of her property. The situation was not settled yet with how to dispose of it, and yet some of them were disposed of, and some of them were just lost. And these are the kind of things that erode the trust in the police service. So when the Chief Secretary says, yeah, the commissioner's situation is not be all and end all in TPS, he's correct. And then there's something else. It goes back to our society now, and perhaps we're really not doing a good job with developing young people. And a lot of people, the low-hanging fruit is developing young men because a lot of the worst crimes are caused because of young men. But I would say developing young people, I don't have time to go into it. Because you have to put the same amount of care and consideration into young women as well, right? The consequences will be different. This whole thing with the scouts and alleged sexual harassment that was perpetrated by a senior scout official. This isn't the first time that there's been a story like something like this has happened, if not here, abroad. Now the question is, especially in a small country like ours, what are we not necessarily doing right? I don't know if it's fair to say that we could teach our young people enough that things like this will never happen if we're vigilant enough. But to some extent, to limit it, we should try, and also with how to treat with it. Because there are potentially questions about how this was treated with the timing of it, if it took too long to get dealt with, etc., etc. But things like this, it makes me look at our society may not necessarily understand how to truly be responsible. What are the values and ethics and morals and principles? Are we all governed by it, or are some of us foolishly trying to follow it because we have a personal code, while others exploit that because they just don't care? Life is too short, and they rather step on people than build something together with everybody. And perhaps that if we could figure that out, not necessarily perfectly, but a little bit more, certain things like corruption, like people not doing their job when they have roles like in the police service and in the public service, or not exploiting customers when you're in the private sector, maybe those things might be solved a little bit more. And believe it or not, I do think that the seeds of that comes in the education system, and when the education system fails and you see some teachers be a waste of time, then it encourages those young people to grow up. Oh, look at that, I get government work, I could be a waste of time too. Not everybody is, but it doesn't take that many to spoil the whole barrel. Now, let's go straight in to the daily review. just before we welcome the good lady, I wanted to mention this first story because it's a couple of days old. Secretary General of the Mahasabha, Vijay Maharaj, he is calling out, stop abusing the Hindu community. And it's a very interesting take that he has, because when the PNM decided to speak about the fact that Stuart Young comes from, I can't remember where it was, Labre, Penal, one of those areas that, you know, is, I guess you could say, for lack of a better way to put it, it's associated with the Eastern community. All of a sudden, the UNC decided to say, you know, Stuart Lal Bihari Young, or a whole host of other Indian-sounding names, right, to mock him. The problem is, Mr. Maharaj is saying, why does it have to be Hindu names? Why not can be Muslim names? Why is our culture the punchline of your jokes? Now, he's not necessarily letting the PNM off the hook. He's kind of pointing towards both parties. But in this case, the example is what was going on with Stuart Young, right? Why are we like the butt of a joke here? And I think it's interesting because on one hand, one could argue, okay, maybe he's being too sensitive. But on the other hand, you can't discount the fact that, look, if you kind of take it for granted and always go in a certain direction that is borderline disparaging, if not disparaging, at some point culturally that's going to set in, right? And then what are you going to have? And ultimately trying to use a joke like this to some extent to mock whatever the PNM and Stuart Young and his family says about him because of a racial name or racial reason, I think at the end of the day, regardless of the intentions and what side of the line you're on, yes, of course, a lot of the UNC are going to be East Indian and many of them are going to be Hindu, but regardless, if you're basically, that's where you're taking your political attacks now, right? You are perpetuating in however way you want to describe it, you are perpetuating that racial divide. You are. Now, I get it. PNM kind of went after something silly and said something very silly, and to some extent, I don't have an issue with political counters to what the PNM did, but how you're doing it, right? Because truthfully, when it was done the other way, it was a problem, right? And that's all I'll say about that. But ironically, it's not a problem because it's insulting Stuart Young. It's a problem because the overall situation is insulting. I don't think you need to give Stuart Young necessarily an apology, although on principle that still might be the correct thing to do. But rather, you're taking a situation and you're just making it worse for no real significant gain, except for winning points with your base, which I guess if I haven't necessarily spelled this out before, all too often political entities, they do too much to speak to their base, and then they want to find out, why isn't it that no one else loves me? Well, it's because you turn off the people in the middle with nonsense like this. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have the good lady. She'll be weighing in on what she says is the real story behind all of the nonsense that's been happening this last week. Stay tuned.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
And we're back here on talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small here alongside former Minister of Finance Karen Shishera to speak about a wider perspective with regards to the issue, because what's going on right now with the Commissioner of Police, perhaps maybe we should consider it being just a symptom of a larger problem, of a larger environment that has allowed things like this to potentially exist. The main difference is this is far more high profile than maybe some of the other instances that has happened before. And at least in the TTPS, if you listen to some of the people who have either been there or are still in there, they do believe that things like this happen all the time. Now, to what extent is that being allowed or even pushed by an agenda of someone at the top who wants what? We don't necessarily know. That's the problem when you don't have transparency. It works against you. And to speak about that, so we're not necessarily going to focus per se solely on what's going on with the Commissioner of Police. More on this, we have Karen Shishera. Karen, good morning.
Thank you so much for just introducing me as Karen Shishera. That was a very good show.
I did say it for a moment as well.
Oh, God.
I did say it
I don't know why I encouraged that, but in any event...
Can't get away from it, Karen. You can't get away from it.
What I really wanted to deal with this morning is let people see a trend. And I think I have a responsibility, I mean, as a member of Trinidad and Tobago, a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and someone who had the opportunity to get closer than most of us would have and share my own, not only my view, but I will start with first, it's really the question of executive overreach. Are we seeing evidence of executive overreach where we are not seeing the separation of powers? And we must not take that lightly because we are a democratic republic. We are a democracy. And that is why we have a constitution that has been amended over time, but we have had a constitution that protects us, especially Section 4 and 5, and a number of them. And one of the areas in particular that I think that we should advocate very strongly for is for an elected president. I make no comment on the current president. It's not her, it's not the office I am dealing with, that it should be an independent one. And why am I saying this? Well, first I'm going to quote from an article from Martin Daly. And in previous consideration of this issue, I really spoke about Section 76(1)(a) being triggered after an election should the PNM be successful. But as Martin Daly said in his column on Sunday's Express, he wrote a sort of a cautionary note to the current president. He said, and I want to quote it so that it is not really just my words, but what he has said. He said, what has been revealed so far is that sometimes after February 19, Rowley, currently political leader of the PNM, as well as Prime Minister, intends to resign from the office of Prime Minister. We all know that it's Rowley's fervent desire to install Minister Young as his successor. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why does he do it that way? Why didn't he let the party decide it? Well, I said already that he knew that if the party had decided it, more than likely they would not have selected Young. And that in itself is a breach of our constitutional and our democratic rights. But so be it. To the office of Prime Minister. And to do so by resigning. Now, when he resigns, this is the point that I had not really focused on, even missed, is that this. Upon resigning, it is only then that Section 76(1)(a) is triggered. And Section 71(a) says, it doesn't say that a vacancy arises as Prime Minister because of election results. It could happen like the death of the Prime Minister. It could happen, in this case, a resignation. But it's only then that the decision about who among the MPs support Young as a leader. So all that has happened in Balice House, all that has happened in the PNM, which we know there was not a unanimity on that issue based on what we were initially told, the 9/11 split. Clearly there were many people within there, and you have to bear in mind, he still was political leader and all the seats had not been allocated. And it is very possible that you end up being a senator. A senator can be appointed and disappointed in one day. So what you want is to be a member of parliament. You want to be a member of parliament because it gives you security, but you want to be a member of parliament because it is the members of parliament who decide who has the majority support to become Prime Minister. That's who matters. That is who matters. And so he says, other than the above elements of Rowley's departure, there's mystery and smoke screen. First and foremost, we do not know when the letter in support of Minister Young addressed to the President of the Republic, properly dated contemporaneously with Rowley's letter of resignation or immediately subsequent to such resignation, will be signed by the PNM members of the House of Representatives. Given our history, public trust requires avoiding another firestone over any undated, post-dated, backdated, or crassly contrived letter, especially when such a deficient letter will embroil the office of the President in deep suspicion and controversy. So what he's saying to people is what happened at Balice House, not what happens in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. So that does not hold water. That does not hold water. Once he has resigned as an MP and as PM, he has no say. in what happens in the House of Parliament. And therefore, if the if the position is that you're going into an election with 2219, you only need 2 of them to say that they do not want him as the leader, and then it's only then that the letter should be written. And he's kind of cautioning her to do not spoil her reputation, so to speak, by being part of anything that is not above board with any undated, cross-dated, post-dated, pre-dated, all kind of dated. It was only triggered after he resigns. And after he resigns, and that brings us, he mentioned Paula May Weeks, who was the former president. And we could all remember when the Order of Merit list by the Police Service Commission was sent to the president, and under Section 123, as amended in 2006, her job simply was to receive the Order of Merit in the order in which the Police Service Commission had decided, and her only job, according to, I think, 123.4, was then to prepare notification to Parliament. But what happened? What happened? We know now that the mystery visitor was the Prime Minister, who just happened coincidentally to be there when the Police Service Commission chairman, Ms. C. Prasad, had come to hand in the merit list. And what the president, the then president, said, the list was immediately withdrawn. How could it be withdrawn? You don't have any power to take back, hand back anything. You yourself had said that when they wanted you to appoint an acting DCP and an acting COP, you wrote a letter to the Police Service Commission telling her that you are a creature of statute, you have to operate within the 4 walls of the statute, and you can do nothing that the statute does not provide for. So I want to know, as everyone, and this is what he said, many readers remember that Order of Merit list. This is, I'm quoting from Mr. Daly, relative to the appointment of a Commissioner of Police was delivered on August 21st, 2021 to the office of the then President of the Republic, Paula May, and was mysteriously withdrawn. She had no power. She had no power to do that. She knew she couldn't do it with an acting appointment. How you could do it now? And then there was allegedly a meeting between an unnamed public official. I think he came forward and said, the Prime Minister said he was there, and the then chair of the Police Service Commission at President's House on August 12th, 2021, then President Rees declined to answer the question, who came to the office of the President, met or spoke to whom? Transparency at work. Transparency at work. So then he finally, I think, came out and said that it was he that was there. So what he's saying is, what he's trying to say to her is this: I recently warned against creating awkwardness for the president. This is why we should have an elected president. Another example of why the president should not be elected by the executive, because effectively that is who elects them. I recently warned against creating awkwardness for the president in this matter of Section 76 succession by more letter shenanigans. We really need to pass the stage of that office permitting itself being drawn into partisan political party maneuvers. We are entitled to hold the office of president to a higher standard than the one that currently prevails in partisan politics. And he said he has no favorite. And what I am saying is that he's clearly signaling to the public and signaling to the Prime Minister and signaling to the President that we are watching you very carefully. And that brings us to the question, and these are not my words, this is Martin Daly, and I know he's highly respected, and he even said he has no favorite in the horse in the race. But clearly the Prime Minister, it seems, have made a commitment to some persons that young he would deliver young. Because if he hadn't, he would have allowed the party to make that decision, and it's more than likely he would not have been selected. Just if you look at the 9/11 results alone, you know that he would not have gotten the unanimous support. So why did everything get silent? Because, well, they probably already knew what I just said. They probably know that once he resigns, then when the letters go up, they won't sign it. I don't know, but that's a possibility. And that is why I say that Colin Imbert is particularly quiet. That whole thing this morning about him going to a CAF meeting, it's a rotation. I went to those meetings myself. When you have a finance minister, they rotate the position. They didn't pick him up and say, we want you. It's your turn. And he hasn't been, and he's still the Minister of Finance. But if you notice, nearly all the seats have been allocated, but the ones outstanding are Digicel Martin West and Digicel Martin Central. Who's in Digicel Martin West? Colin Imbert. And you notice how quiet he is? He has a law degree, by the way. So I am not saying what he will or will not do, but he's very quiet. And it seems as though that whole issue with the Auditor General is being used. All of a sudden, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are up in arms. How dare he embarrass them? How many times did the Prime Minister embarrass us? When he signed the framework agreement, when he took over the position of Minister of Housing for 9 months and sent the Minister of Housing to Tourism and signed that framework agreement with the Chinese to build a blacklisted construction company, 5,500 houses. And when the Freedom of Information came out, he had to scuttle the agreement because it was so much not in our interest. How about the Inez Gate? How about the FUL that you wrote to the Commissioner of Police saying that, you know, your good friend, Warner, not the Jack Warner, the other Warner from Tobago, his FUL was outstanding and you were willing to come and deliver, get it. How about taking mining on state lands without a license in Tobago in full view of everyone? How about the judge putting an injunction to prevent further mining, illegal quarrying on state lands in Waterloo, and your Minister of Mini-Me, and Mini-Me, whose value is very much, he knows he's very much a carbon copy of you, so if you didn't like Rowley, you can't like him. But he immediately, 2 weeks afterwards, gave a temporary license to Mr. Warner's son. What does that say about the kind of people you want to have in government? You're showing you who they are. You're getting a, you know, just have, when you have a trailer, you get in the trailer. You're getting the trailer. Don't they get in the trailer, right? And so now they try to blacken the name of, all of a sudden, Colin Imbert. But all that I know, I was in government. Yes, I was there. I was minister. Yes, I was there. And there's no way that when it used to be Dr. Said acted as Prime Minister, he would ever make a decision as serious as setting up a Harris investigation without getting the say-so of the Prime Minister. You call the Prime Minister, say that you want to do that. And then, even if he hadn't done that, there's nothing to stop the Prime Minister from scuttling it. He is the Prime Minister. He fired Robert Lahand. What's to stop him from saying, no, 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 no? So he has to take ultimate responsibility. He is the Prime Minister. Stop putting everything on Colin Imbert. Colin Imbert was allowed to do what he did because you allowed him to do it. And now you want to get rid of him because I believe that you do not want him to be a member of Parliament because you are concerned that if you do that, that you need one, you just need two of them to say they do not recognize Young, and you will not be able to do that because that constitution of our country is stronger than your constitution of Balizi House, of the PNM. That's our constitution. And that is why all of a sudden you are now up in arms against him. But you have to take responsibility because you allowed him to do it. I was in cabinet. You think any minister mad enough to do something without the Prime Minister's agreement? Something as serious like that? There's no way that could have happened. So you do not just put the blame on yourself too. Put the blame on yourself too. And that brings me to the other one with the COP. Everybody knows they had the case of Crane versus Bernard of 1992, natural justice and a right to be heard. When they had complaints about Justice Crane, about his missing court and other complaints. But he was coming on the steps of the Hall of Justice. A police officer served him with a letter from the Judicial Legal Service Commission, of which the Chief Justice is the head, to say that he was suspended he was not assigned to any court. He took them to the, well, he didn't go to the Privy Council, but he went up to the Court of Appeal, and they said it was a breach of natural justice. If you're going to accuse me of something, I have a right to be heard. I have to know exactly what the particulars of the wrong that I have done. That is plain natural justice, Crane versus Bernard, since 1992. There are many other cases like that. That is a basic principle of law, right? And when you come to the COP, according to what I have read, a lawyer, Pamela Elder, said that she has been suspended for misbehaving in public office. But apparently no particulars of the misbehavior have been given. So what is she to answer to that? If somebody makes a broad statement but doesn't give the particulars of how, then how are they supposed to answer? And how could you suspend me without giving me an opportunity to be heard? And that is why the DPP had told them to release her. Because based on the evidence, he has to go on evidence. And based on what he had, it must be that they did not give him particulars to support the allegation of misbehaving in public office, and as a result of which they had no other choice but to release her. And that looked like another setup. I don't know if it is because after the Prime Minister said the policemen do work and the police service hiding out and all of this and lambast them, and she came to their defense, as she should. I don't know if that was the trigger.
And there's an article this morning in the Express. The headline is, they still don't have enough evidence to the DPP's liking, enough to charge.
No, but he couldn't. He cannot.
Right? So they still have not met whatever threshold that he thinks they need to meet. They still can't do it.
And not even if they do that, they have to give her, just like in Crane, they didn't learn from that case, Crane and Bernard, that you have to give her an opportunity to be heard and give particulars of the offense, and then give her a chance to answer. So why this haste? Why this haste to do this? It just does not sound right. I've dealt with the issue with Paula May Weeks. Look at what she did to her reputation. I mean, I don't think she could ever recover from that. Now we are facing the issue with Young. It's not going to happen. It happened as soon as he resigns. And when he resigns, he will not have any power. So the major one I think he's targeting is Imbert, because I think he thinks Imbert, I don't know, Imbert very quiet. That's all I will say. And he hasn't acted as
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister since last July. And I think he removed him from chairman and made him a DPL, which is going downwards. And, it seems like the Prime Minister made a promise to somebody that Young going to be there. And I wonder why. Because if Young is anything like this Prime Minister, we know exactly what you're going to get. You know exactly what you're going to get. And then, so that is the COP, and they're right. And they said they're going for judicial review. Just like with the Auditor General, they went judicial review. And that is where they're heading, unless they come with particulars. And the other one is, from my own experience, when the Integrity Commission wrote to the DPP and saying to bring charges against me under Section 34(7), which is for criminal conduct. And at that time, the two lawyers who worked for me, who were very highly respected, maybe they will work for me today, but they did work for me at the time, they wrote him and kept writing them and asked, well, tell us what is the criminal wrongdoing that the minister has provided. They hemmed and they hawed, and they hemmed and they hawed. Well, there's a 3-week period, I think, for judicial review. So the last letter they got was, if you do not give us particulars so that she can answer what it is that you are accusing her of, except this, like behavior in public office, like Section 34(7) equivalent, then we're going for judicial review. All of a sudden, like a light bulb went on, and they said they're sorry, they made a mistake. Oh, yes, you made a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. You know you didn't want to go judicial review because you would have gotten beaten up, because you breached natural justice, you breached the right to be heard, and you failed to give particulars. And that is why I think this situation, and I don't hold any brief for any of these people, by the way. I hold a brief for Trinidad and Tobago. So my own experience, and now the final thing which I just want to mention, because it really is so annoying. It is so distasteful. This Hector, Mr. Hector, that was killed, Randall Hector. Again, the Express coming with a stupid story and trying to connect Dana Sitahal's murder and his murder with being prosecutors. How many times are you trying to take people, distract? It's not, listen, it's a distraction. It's not making sense. Pamela Elder came out and told the public that the man was not involved in the active prosecution of the gentleman. What are you all talking about? But he was a legal advisor to the SSA. Why don't you make a connection with that and Mr. Daniel, who was murdered in similar fashion by similar kind, according to the Express, on the highway, who was the administrator of all those CCTV cameras that were installed in a number of homes. So he would have had an access to see what was going on. Why don't you make the connection with him Mr. Daniel, and Mr. Hector, because they have in common the SSA. And in Dana's case, how many times did you have to hear, I think it's Smithfield or Brownfield, I always get it mixed up. And anyway, he was the assistant director of drugs and DA. And we had come to Trinidad for 3 days, and Dana Sital met with him during that 3 days because she is a fellow of Fulbright, a Fulbright fellow. And she met with him, and 3 days after he left, she was murdered. And he has gone on record. Why are you all keep on doing that nonsense with the Nyman Coolman thing? Why are you trying to fool up people with that nonsense? I'm like, I am embarrassed with the Express. Stop taking instructions wherever you're getting them instructions from, right? Because why don't you quote somebody independent who is saying that she was not killed for her pocketbook? It was a very clearly planned and executed, just like Hector, just like Daniel, executed murder, assassination, he called it, and it is connected with a transnational organization with its roots in Trinidad and Tobago. Why don't you say that? Why are you talking about Nyman Coolman? And why are you trying to connect Hector with a non-prosecution of a drug thing? Who are you taking the instructions from the Express? I mean, I always looked up to the Express, but oh God, stop taking those instructions, the man. You're making yourself look bad for anybody with any sense. Why can't you take the word of Smithfield or Brownfield? You looking it up? Because I thought you would get the right name, Smithfield or Brownfield. Anyway, that he said it was a transnational organization with roots in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the reason why Dana was killed. Don't you think they know what they're talking about? My God, I have to read today in the papers. Today, she was also, both of them were prosecutors, Nyman Coolman. They come off of it. Please, let that be the last time you write that now. Whoever giving you all instructions to write that nonsense, right? Please, Trinidad and Tobago, don't be fooled. Please, please do not be fooled by that nonsense. They're taking you down a rabbit hole, right? The more relevant connection has to be Daniel. It has to be Daniel, and they more or less said so. And you know why Dana was killed, because the Americans came and told you that. 3 days after he left, she was murdered. Smithfield or Brownfield, I can't remember the name. The Guardian had reported it and quoted exactly what he said. He said, it was not a case of stealing a pocket. It was a transnational organization with its roots, in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the cause of the death. So you read the same thing I read. Okay, so stop, please. I beg you. You know,
Brownfield.
What?
Brownfield.
What did Brownfield say? You read it all, because I don't want anybody to say Guardian had interviewed him.
Well, this is a different article here.
When
2020. Oh no, this is 2014.
What did he say?
CETAL was a well-planned and orchestrated hit by an international criminal organization with a presence in Trinidad and Tobago. This was a carefully planned operation, and it is only one kind of entity that does contract murders of this sort of degree of sensitivity, and that is organized crime. Pointed a link between the increased use of the Caribbean region as a transit point for US-bound drugs and a rise in murders and violence in the region.
Okay, you heard it? You heard it?
Drug trafficking routes are shifting from Central America to the Caribbean in response to increased interdiction efforts in the Isthmus, right? And
what was Brownfield's position? He didn't read out what his position was. He was what?
Let me just...
It's Brownfield.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State William Brownfield.
Yeah, but he was also in charge of drugs and he met with Dana.
But I mean, Assistant Secretary is a very high...
Right, but he also has the thing of drugs and so on. And he had met with Dana because she is a fellow...
Yes, you just said it.
Yeah, right.
But what is pertinent to what he's saying here is, notice this whole trade war and tariff war that Trump did. What happened? Within 24 hours, I believe Mexico basically said, oh wait, we'll put troops on the border to kind of stop the smuggling and the illegal immigrants and all that. But I think one of the key things was Mexican law enforcement on the border to help interdict criminal activity. And it just goes to show, yes, the path of least resistance is not going to be Mexico. It's going to be up the Lesser Antilles, and we start with the first in line of that train. And if there was any doubt, just look at the Tobago drug seizure. When they took the drugs in no man's land, they basically said it was to go up the islands. 20 million in cocaine.
And by the way, they mentioned U.S. intelligence. And if U.S. intelligence gets involved, you know what that means? You have no other choice but arrest. That's what it means. But anyway, I don't want to stray from the point. The point is this whole issue of young, right? He's being forced on the population. And you have to ask yourself why. And I know you all know the answer, because I know the answer too, but I do not want to be sued. But we all know the answer to that question. And he was a complete failure. Okay, he did the unitization of train 2, 3, and 4, in which we have a 10% share. Train 1 was a fallacy of his imagination. But other than that, there has been a complete failure in every area of energy. So he took the position in 2021. And he did nothing to give us alternative sources of energy. Only talk. And that is what this government has done for 9 years. You all could get, you could get mad with me because you don't like what I'm saying, but I am a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago first and foremost, right? That is my responsibility. This is my children and my grandchildren's home, and I am not going to step by as far as I can and not speak out. And if you want to hate me because you say, she's against the I'm not against anything. I was in the PNM, and if Mr. Manning was there, 100% I would be in the PNM. 100% I would be in the PNM. I'm telling you that for sure. But the leadership is questionable. Who he surrounds himself is equally questionable. And the fact that your position, you the rank and file, are still at the bottom of the barrel. And he talked about diversification, and he hate that word. And then when he talked about the thing about how nothing wrong with people getting rich. Watch out, that's who you have. And his mini-me is going to continue it. And that's why certain sectors in this economy who have a lot of power, it appears, want him, and I feel he promised to deliver him. Let's see what happens. I do not have a crystal ball. I do not have tea leaves. But I am just saying that you connect the dots. Connect the dots. And the same thing goes, and neither do I hold any brief for your Commissioner of Police. I don't know, but I know what they're doing is not right. I don't hold a brief for Colin Mimbert, but I know what they're doing is to try to force. They wait in the last, they don't know how to get around that. Because if they do not select him, all 30 constituent party groups selected him. They do not know how to get around not making him an MP. And I don't know what they're doing with Brown. He's a senator, so he have to watch himself. He and others have to watch himself, because appoint, disappoint. MP, put you in a backbench. That is the name of politics. That is the politics, and you have to love your country more than that, man. And that's the end of that.
Well, I mean, it was a lot, but actually it was a lot in a shorter time frame that I'm accustomed to.
What are you meaning by that, sir?
No, I guess, yes, one of the things that we have to be willing, and somebody is pointing out that journalists in press conference are now more willing to be assertive with their line of questioning. They're not necessarily just taking the deflection and moving on. They're like, no. We want answers to these specific questions. Now, granted, I haven't necessarily seen it. In one case, I can't remember if it was Dr. Keith Rowley and Akash.
SOFA.
Right?
The SOFA thing.
Right, and then
it was the SOFA thing. When he asks about what is the amendment to the SOFA that applies to us, which allows American troops to land there. But he playing smart with Japanese and saying they're not going to have like a base. It's not going to be a base, but it's going to be a landing spot for them to. And
the most recent incident was DCP Benjamin and Keyshawn Haynes basically didn't allow. DCP Benjamin said, I think something along the lines of, I don't appreciate this lines of questioning, and Mr. Haynes was like, well, I don't appreciate you not answering the question. Right, so my point is perhaps now we need to understand that, and I've been saying this for a while, but maybe when you see journalists being more aggressive in these press conferences to try to stick to their questions and not let the speaker off the hook, it's in part because the environment that we're in, they have these wider concerns with how things are being governed, with the lack of transparency, with the hidden agendas, right? With the manipulation of the system, because you're not, you know, Keaton pointed it out too, and I the person who is basically bringing up the merit list every other month, I actually didn't even think about it until Keaton brought it up last week, Friday, that look at the position of Commissioner of Police and how it has been treated. And listen, we don't know all of the details behind the scenes, but this is the problem when you're not transparent with us.
Can I say
we can't trust that everything is fine.
No, what I will say, two things to that. One, I think part of the reason why the Prime Minister feels the way he did with the appointment of Commissioner of Police and so on is because in 2006 when they made the amendment which said that the decision of the Deputy Commissioner and Commissioner of Police would not would have to go through Parliament, right?
Yes.
And he said, he's quoted in the Hansard, he was so angry. He said, I was away when this happened, and I don't know why the Prime Minister agreed to that. He said before, the Prime Minister was sitting in the quiet of his office, and the Police Service Commission would bring a name, and if he didn't like that person, they'd take it, he'd send it back, and they'd have to bring another name. So I feel he was very, very upset that that power that the Prime Minister had been taken away by introducing this amendment to the Constitution 123, 124, around that time, that thing in 2006, which now said that it would go to Parliament. And I feel he feels that he has a right to decide. I feel that is partly it. And secondly, whilst you praise the persons who are doing their job as reporters, I think sometimes you get to hear what they really think because it's live. So live, they can't cut them. But then you look in the papers, and then you see how the papers are towing a certain line, like how I had to read today about Hector and connecting it with the prosecution with Dean and Sita. What nonsense that is. You know that is not true. You know that is not true, but somebody telling you to take that line and take people down that line. And then next thing everybody say, yeah, they killed Hector because he's prosecuted. That is not true, and you know it is not true.
Is all of this, because Professor Deosran said
I didn't need to
that the situation with the Police Service Commission, it needs to be restructured, because he's saying, you know, the Service Commission has powers, but Parliament has powers, and this is not working, right? There's a redundancy or an overlap, and it's not working. But would you say that overall, all of these things that you've spoken on today, it points to the fact that, look, we need significant reform constitutionally?
I'll give you the answer. The answer is, it may be simple, but it's a KISS, you know, keep it simple. The answer to all of this is the quality of your leadership. If your leadership is committed to change, it will happen. If your leadership is not committed to change, it will delay. How long the campaign financing legislation sitting down there?
Yeah.
How long the gambling commission legislation sitting down there? How long the Part 6 to the Procurement Act, which says disposal of state lands, the regulations have not been passed. You have to understand it is and all the maritime vessels, you say providing them with the tools to carry out their job, but nearly every one of them is not working. And so how are they supposed to do their job? And all you're telling me you don't know that. So it comes right back in every case. But look like what's happening in America. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, that's not what we're talking about. Look at the power of one man.
I have seen something where a person who did not vote for Trump basically said, look, at the end of the day, he's transparent. He tells you what he means, and he tells you what he's going to do.
Yeah, others who did the same thing, and I don't know if that's a good thing either.
So you know, to some, but hey, it won him in the poll. It won him in the election.
I am not commenting on his leadership. All I am saying is who is the leader, the stronger and more committed and more honest and more leadership is what all the things that you want, because our Constitution, he didn't make it up. We inherited it since 1962, and it really is one of maximum leadership. So if you have this maximum power, you can either abuse it or use it to the benefit of the people, and that is the answer to every other underlying question you raise, that is the answer.
I agree with you because unfortunately constitutional reform will come from the same source that everybody in various degrees is complaining about, from the same elected officials who we have to elect, and if we fail to elect good ones, then the reform is not going to work, just like how all of the legislation you pointed out is basically sitting on the bench.
9 going on 10 years.
Or we get things like the procurement legislation.
But they don't pass that's with the refinery. That is why they don't have to go to the procurement regulator, because the regulations to bring that provision into effect have not been passed. That is why the regulator has said that she does not have, she's on standing on the sidelines.
Now,
with something like a refinery.
It might be fine if you didn't then tout that we have procurement regulation. If you didn't then include it and look at what we've done for you. It hasn't amounted to anything. And when it matters the most with the refinery, one of the big assets of state, right? I mean, look, there's a reason why I don't think anybody will look at us selling the Heathrow slips to be a good thing.
True.
Right? And that was just disposed of quietly, and Lord knows how, Lord knows with who set up that deal, and Lord knows if they were, well, I'm saying if because I don't want to, I'm being safe. Kickbacks were in that arrangement because it made no actual practical sense to the country.
What about the airport for 3 million people? That making sense too. No, 3 million people. That is twice the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And people don't stay in an airport, you know. As far as I can see, they pass through an airport.
They pass through an airport.
Yeah,
so all we need is an airport that is big enough to deal with the traffic we have.
And how much traffic do we have about?
In Tobago, it is something like foreign visitors. It's like 20,000 or something like that.
And where is this airport being built? In Tobago.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to you?
Yeah, at least in Trinidad, it's like 300,000, and I don't believe that's diaspora, but if it is, that means it's even worse, right? But in Tobago, if we don't have anything to generate people to come to the island, that airport is going to be underutilized.
But 3 million.
And the point is, at least
why not 500,000?
Because the Airports Authority just renovated the existing Crown Point terminal for domestic travel, right? That entire domestic terminal is relatively new. So the justification, at least at one point I heard, was the current terminal will be for domestic and the new terminal will be for international. The problem is we do not have daily international flights. So that airport potentially...
You go figure.
Right? Are we just going to leave it on maintenance mode for half of the week when staff don't have to turn up? And then then if you hire people in that capacity, how do you justify giving them a proper wage if they're not working for half of the week? Or how do you justify for employing them for a full-time job, for a full-time salary, when they don't have work for half of the week?
How big? I mean, when something doesn't make sense, guess what? It doesn't make sense.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not impossible for international flights to come through the current terminal. So that tells me that, look, it's not as though it is so small that it is that impractical. It didn't need to be exponentially larger.
No, nobody's saying that. I would never say that.
Yeah.
But 3 million?
3 million, it seems unlikely. Listen, it's fine to have aspirations.
And then you have to have, remember now, when you go and build an airport for 3 million, you have to maintain that airport for 3 million. And what's the cost of maintenance?
It's fine to have aspirations to have 3 million visitors. But we can't go from less than 100,000 to 3 million. I'm being generous, Karen. I'm being very... Yes, I know. I got it from you. You can't go from 20,000 to 3 million overnight. And I believe that they are trying to get the opening for the election. It could be a soft opening. That might mean that it's not fully,
I mean, if they had a soft opening and that, it should be embarrassed to do that, because I would have to
I don't know. That's just my speculation there.
But they shouldn't want to do it.
Right? That's just well, they want to open it before the election.
But you know what I would think? Let's say that we have these good reporters, they would ask them that question.
I think in this environment, they will reach to that point. All right. Hopefully. I believe so. I have confidence. I have more confidence in our reporters than the Attorney General has in our judges. You can quote me on that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the phone line. Stay tuned.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I'm back here talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small, Karen, this is Sharon. We're joined by our first caller. Now, just a reminder, if you call in, when you get on air, please don't try to have the conversation on the phone while following on your television. They are not in sync. There's a delay on the television, and you will be confused. Mute your TV. Mute your TV. We have a first caller on the line. Diego Martin, good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Small, and good morning to the former Minister of Finance, the Honorable Karen Nunes Teixeira. Respect, respect, respect. I have a couple of questions for you, Karen. I hope you don't mind I call you Karen.
No.
And I'm going to shoot right to the heart of a critical thing.
Yeah.
Why do you think the current Prime Minister is still in politics, and Patrick Manning had a chance to eliminate him from our political scene? Because I have to give some soft cuff to Mr. Manning for letting him be where he is now.
Yes.
No. You are a lawyer, and I am a bush lawyer. And I've gone through 1601, the Firearms Act. And I am seeing that the snipers are not prohibited rifles. So I want you, as the lawyer, to tell me, because a big police, not the DCP INI, was on television beyond the tape yesterday. And he said, yes, they have prohibited weapons, but there is no way in the English language, with all the jargon in the law, that I, a simple-minded person, could read through the law and say it is simple artillery or machine guns and mortar thing, and no way a sniper rifle fits into a prohibited right thing. The other thing I want to say, the JAMPRO. The JAMPRO, has the JAMPRO finally put a nail into NICON? And how are we recovering all that investment our government made into that? And there is that, and that, that is something we have to ask, because they try to keep it afloat since the Malcolm Jones scenario, and they spend bad money.
Not the government, to be fair to them. They actually were the ones that started the whole cutting off NICON. It was the banks that wanted to try to keep NICON going, and the other investors.
Yeah, but it's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as that, because you have to look at who were investors in NICON, and also, I don't want to really, you see the NICON issue. I have my views on that, and unless I can, you said I'm a lawyer, you're a bush lawyer, but I'm a lawyer, and I have to be very careful in terms of how I approach that NICON issue. I mean, to be fair, it was a good thing, and it would have been a great success for Trinidad and Tobago that we were able to provide a renewable source of energy using natural gas, but natural gas was the feedstock that you had to have. And so part of the problem is we just didn't have enough, and the government knew they didn't have enough for the downstream as well as the LNG, but they had a 20% call on the natural gas. But in any event, it was an abysmal failure. Republic Bank, I just don't want to go into all the connections that would have helped them to be able to start Nikon, and the government was an investor. The government sold to them for a song and a dance and said it was scrap metal, which I do not think it was. The government also had a percentage shareholding in it. The government also set up this company called the Trinidad and Tobago Upstream Downstream Limited, which allowed them to use their 20% natural gas to, for the Nikon project when there was a big shortage of natural gas for the LNG and downstream industries. So many of them had closed down. So there are a lot of questions to be answered with regard to that, and I really have to be careful how I address that matter. But it's not, you cannot take the government out of it. If it had succeeded, it would have been a good thing, but it just did not, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, and I have to be careful. With your first question was with regard to...
Dr. Rowley and how...
Oh, yes, with that. My understanding, and that's just my understanding, because I was a neophyte in that sense, but I was close enough to the Prime Minister because I think he trusted me and had confidence in me, and I don't think he just had trust and confidence in me just like that. I think he probably did his research, and I think what he felt was enough pressure was put on him not to let go Rowley. I do think he did want to take Rowley. He did not want Rowley going back up. He recognized that, that Rowley may have been a threat to him, but he was persuaded and he allowed him and others, whom I shall not mention, but he did tell me that I can see, and I know that he did not want him, but enough pressure was put on him. And what was the other question?
Well, just that the Firearms Act does not mention sniper rifles.
Right. Well, all of that is really about getting rid of the COP.
So
that's what it is. Looking for an excuse.
Thank you, caller. We have another caller, but I'll just say this. Thank you, Digger Martin. I read the Firearms Act. It does not mention non-automatic weapons being prohibited, so it doesn't say anything about sniper rifles. And it just so happens that now, if you go on the Ministry of the Attorney General Legal Affairs website, that's where I got it. And maybe if I should have downloaded it, but if I downloaded it, maybe I would not have tried to access it. Now, I don't know if because there's so much traffic, maybe that's why it's not accessible. But all of a sudden, the Firearms Act is no longer available for me to find on the Ministry of Attorney General and Legal Affairs website.
Are we surprised?
All of a sudden, it's not there.
Look at the Auditor General when he said he wouldn't pay for anything except the written advice. And now the Privy Council say they have to pay her legal fees for senior counsel, junior counsel, and instructing attorney. So she didn't have to go forward with the other action. So you don't understand what's going on here?
Joke is on, to some extent, the internet, please. You cannot necessarily...
Down, sliding down, see it.
You can't necessarily totally eliminate something off of the internet. So the AI is still reading it, and while an AI-generated answer is not always 100% accurate, given that I've already read the act and I couldn't find sniper rifles and it's not disagreeing with me, until they restore the Firearms Act on the Ministry of Attorney General Legal Affairs website, I'll just have to go with what I read from the official source. That was confirmed to me by a member of the TTPS. We have Tunapun on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Hello.
Hi, morning, caller. Yes, you're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Karen. Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Yeah. I have to just give, all I will do, I will summarize, since this is an election year and it's time for people to really think and know what they will be doing. Because if we continue like what we are going through, we wouldn't end up nowhere, and all the negatives will take place, and we will still be suffering. The population is suffering right now.
Exactly. No, not all the population. Have a little percentage are doing real well in this country. Say thank you to the Prime Minister. He said nothing wrong with the rich getting richer.
Yeah, and...
Caller?
Yes.
All right, is that it, Paula?
Yes, and I think people, the population should right now, this is their time, should sit and look back of what, and think what they want and do the right thing. And we need lots of constitutional reform to change a lot of things that will benefit this nation so that our future population will enjoy a better Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And people
You're
might
right,
think, I
you
can't
can't
get
get
involved, but you have to start. It doesn't matter. The timing does not matter.
You're right.
It has to be as soon as possible. We have Mova on the line. Good morning,
Just let
caller.
me say that if oops, that page cannot be found.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah. Mova on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning to the panel. We observed as the Minister of Energy, Stuart Young, had made the point that Pioneer Fuel was making a profit. Now, I would like to know how that could be, because at the closure of the refinery in 2018, the Freedom of Information Act up to 2018 to 2024 suggests that Pioneer was not making a profit. They was losing money. So the minister need to be factual. He need to come clean with that. He need to show how it is Pioneer was making money, because the facts stated that via the Freedom of Information Act that they was losing money. Even Senator Vailmack has proven it via a press release. Thank you very much.
And that's going to be your next Prime Minister. No, it can't be. He doesn't have your interest at heart. I'm saying that.
Listen, they restructured it.
I am saying he does not have. I got it, I got the act.
You got the firearms?
Yes, but I went to another site. You know, I have to do a lot of research with my writing.
Right, it's not a PDF.
I found it.
Okay, we have Sanfan on the line. San Fernando, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning. I want to find out from you all if you already article with Jamaica and the fuel for Trinidad and Tobago, and what you all think about it.
Well, Mr. San Fernando called in yesterday, and apparently the deal that we got on, because of the price Jamaica gave us, that's what made the deal feasible. It was a really good price because apparently they can't necessarily sell all of the bunker fuel that they produce. So because of that, it's a minor thing. It's 500,000 barrels versus 17 million barrels of fuel overall of all types that we import. So it seems as though, yes, the minister is technically correct when he says that it is a profitable deal, and I don't necessarily have a problem with the deal, but it just highlights their refinery is usable, our refinery is not usable, and we have to ask that question, why? But I'm not too sure if, you can't necessarily say, oh, it's a bad deal and what we're doing, and I'm not even too sure to what extent did we produce bunker fuel or what was the actual product that our refinery, we did.
We did, because when I spoke to somebody from OWTU, they said they use bunker fuel for the ships because they don't need the same level of sulfur removal in order to be able to use it. So they did produce it.
Right.
But you know what is it? What's going on? There's a lack of trust. A lack of trust in your government, and you have every reason not to trust them.
Yeah, because the thing is,
every reason not to trust them.
When I said what Mr. San Fernando said to some other people on WhatsApp and what have you who I know, right? Basically, it was a situation of, well, why did the minister explain it like that? Because he didn't.
Or the second one. DCP Martin was charged for driving on the priority bus route illegally. That's one. Two, she was supposedly the senior officer who went to Barbados and met Brent Thomas.
Yes.
And there's an investigation going on there where Barbados admitted to liability.
Basically, yes. I'm not sure of the technical specifics, but basically, the AG said...
They admitted it.
Yes, don't even contest it.
Right. And Trinidad and Tobago want to appeal or whatever it is or go to court.
Part of it. They conceded some of it, but they appealed part of it.
How come DCP Martin was allowed to stay on the job when she was charged before the court? And
that case has resolved in her favor, though.
But no, it doesn't matter. She was charged then before.
Right. Yeah. While she was charged, I understand. Yes.
Was charged and released, and she's suspended.
Well, I think the clue is in the fact that, and this has come up before, she took a CARICOM plane to get Brent Thomas. She couldn't do that on her own.
Thank
Right?
you very much.
Right? I'm not saying who authorized it.
Can I correct one thing?
Yeah.
Because I read it. It doesn't matter that she was in a vehicle that was unmarked. She could, from my understanding, use the
Never
PBR.
passed.
But this
But
is
she's never
someone,
passed.
well, someone said to me that from the police, someone who seemed to know what they were talking about.
case
But
was
any
not-
event,
The case was not driving on the priority bus routes. The case was a teenager was hit.
But had she not been driving on a priority bus route, the teenager would not have been hit.
Well, but the charges were on the potential injury, not on the driving on the priority bus routes.
Anyway, it doesn't
so
matter.
that technically is a moot point.
What I
That
will
was
tell
not
you,
before the court.
what I will tell you
Anyway,
is that don't get distracted. You see all of
I
those
will let
things,
her-
those
Thank
are
you, caller.
distractions.
We do have another call on the line. Hopefully they haven't we haven't lost them. Caller, good morning. Are you still with us? Caller, good morning.
Morning, Karen.
Morning, morning.
Oh, this is from Davide.
Yes.
Yes. But Karen, I want to start off first by commending you. I worked closely with you when you were campaigning in W Mirror. I worked closely with you as a minister while you were minister in the Ministry of Finance. And you did an excellent job. I must commend you publicly for that. There are a lot of positive things that you did for this constituency. Regularization of land in Karapo, sorting out the water problem of sewage going down the drain in Santa Monica Gardens and so forth and so forth. You would have done quite a lot, dedicated and knowledgeable, and thank you for that. I want to remind Sean, though, that most of my comments over the last year concerning the police service is that I was always a supporter of them, but I also criticize them as far as management is concerned. And the police service thinks right now at the head, the entire executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they like crabs in a barrel, fighting to see who could be on top and who can't be on top. While the foot soldiers at the bottom are catching hell. If you listen to Dixon sometimes, there's the welfare ASP, social and welfare ASP.
Yeah.
You realize that he has a whole book of complaints of things to be done. While the executive, instead of taking care of managing the police service effectively, introducing new programs and policies, they're busy fighting against each other. And until all of them at the top goes, and we replace them with a new executive management team, Trinidad and Tobago will continue to see poor policing. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to comment on this topic this morning, and may you and Karen have a pleasant day.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing, if you don't mind me.
Because we have another caller.
Okay, well, I'm going to say, okay, this is what I'm going to say very quickly. I don't want us to get, I know all what you said is absolutely relevant, but I want us to focus on this thing with the suspension of the COP and the unconstitutionality of it, and the reason why that's what it is, because it's from the leadership that you're going to be able to fix things. And what we're saying here is that something is amiss with regard to the way in which she was suspended, and the DPP would said, let her go, because you have not given particulars of the offense that she did. That is what we have to be considered. Your constitutional rights, your democracy is at risk.
We have Sanfran on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Morning.
You know, in light of the most recent information with this issue with the Commissioner of Police, the what do you call it? The police service, the people who are trying to arrest Ms. Christopher again, or to rearrest Ms. Christopher, charge her, went to the DPP yesterday, and without it seems as if nothing miraculous happened between Saturday and yesterday because they were still sent packing by the DPP's office or by the DPP himself, based on what he said. Now, you know what bothers me about that? What bothers me is the same DPP office seems to not be consistent in the way he's doing things. Because remember, and I understand them going back to try and persuade him without additional information. Because this is the same gentleman, this is the same office that when Ms. Martin was charged, when the information that he got, that they see that what Meister had, that they went to him with, and they charged her for that issue on the priority bus route. This is the same man that came back now and saying that it will be an uphill battle to his words. It will be an uphill battle to prosecute her and let her go. So his office as well is inconsistent.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay,
not
Karen,
at all.
explain.
Okay, I will explain. I will explain.
I'm glad you're coming.
I will explain. I will explain.
Because I actually don't follow you either, San Fernando.
No, it's not that. When you go and a police charge you, the next thing they have to take the evidence they have. That's why they have thousands of people sitting down in remand. You just saw a man spent 21 years in remand. And that doesn't mean you've just been charged by the police, but you have not been determined whether you should stand trial for the charge that the police have brought. And when it came to the magistrate, she let him go because the evidence was not enough. There was that case with the Bail Act, with that young man who spent 7 years inside of thing, and when it reached the magistrate, they had to let it go. Because when you go to the DPP, the police have to come with evidence that will stand up in a court of law, not in a court of public opinion. And when they came with what evidence they came with, he was satisfied that it was not strong enough to be able to go forward with a case against her. Because apparently the young man, I just saw it vaguely, had alighted from a maxi taxi. And I know someone who died on at PBR, similarly, that must have alighted from a maxi taxi and came up from either the back or behind, and she did not see him. And whatever it was, that he was not satisfied that there was sufficient evidential thing to take the matter, because in a criminal court of law, the standard of proof, look at O.J. Simpson, is not on a balance of probability, is beyond a reasonable doubt. I have absolute confidence in the DPP, and I think it's very unfair. It is very unfair to say that in that case, since you must be working in the DPP, you must know what he had to take into account to be able to make such a slanderous comment about his performance.
Can I answer now? Let me say this. The DPP, when according to what I read, they said before they charged Ms. Martin, they went to the DPP's office before Ms. Martin was charged, not after.
Yeah, but that's
they went to the DPP's office with their evidence, and they were instructed to charge her.
And then
that is my point. They were instructed to charge her based on the information that they took. So this is the same information that they would have had.
Based on the information they took. Perhaps there was information that they withheld. And the problem with the DPP, he is not allowed to come out and speak out and say exactly what because of his being in a public office. But I'm pretty confident that when they came with whatever evidence they had, it appeared to be enough. And then he got further evidence, and when he saw it, he said, you see, this case is going to be hard. This is another remand case of thousands of them sitting down in remand for years and years of their life.
The thing is, caller, eventually he said the evidence cleared, like he didn't have enough evidence to continue with Suzette Martin, and then he stopped.
He said it would have been an uphill battle.
Right.
But waste of money.
My issue was that the same office that they went to with the information and they said, okay, go ahead and charge her, is the same office.
Yeah, but we don't, but caller, the problem is...
My issue is just with the inconsistency.
No, but caller, unless you know to what extent the information was in both cases so that you compare them.
Not only
you
that,
can't accurately compare the
not
situations
only
to
that,
say
you
that
cannot
it's
say, because
inconsistent.
I worked in the government before I left to teach at the law school, right? And we had a lot of cases with police officers, wrongful arrest, wrongful thing. Let me tell you something. I have had an experience with the police myself, but I had to write to the Commissioner of Police, Stevenson, because of how they treated me, because they recognize who I am. So let me just tell you this. I have absolute confidence in him, and he is somebody they wish they could get rid of. That is this government. They've tried everything to get rid of him. And I am pretty confident that when they came and he found out additional information, he said, oh my God, no, that changed the color of this thing. You know, I don't know that I will win this case. So you cannot make a judgment on him. This is a man who has been begging for staff, and they have not given him staff. This is a man who the Chief Justice went on the opening of court to say that matters are being slowed down because they're sending the indictments manually after the DPP had to come out and say they had an agreement because they're understaffed. So I am going to defend him unless something else comes up. And you do not know all the facts. I could tell you that.
I am just stating that what the information that is out there, and I have an issue with the information that is out there.
Yeah, but we don't.
I am not saying that I know what happened in the DPP office.
Right.
I'm saying
but on
the surface where you have the same office that set the charger. It's the same office that set the
at the end of the day, in both cases, right now, both cases are ending at the same point where the DPP is saying there's not enough, so let it go. Right.
And yes, I'm saying that. But
so that actually is consistency.
My point was
that
the fact that the officers went back to the DPP yesterday,
right,
with seemingly to convince them to allow them to charge Miss Martin, to charge Miss Martin. I'm sorry, to charge Miss Christopher.
Miss Christopher.
The fact is that. It would seem as if they went back with nothing new, but because of that previous inconsistency that I pointed out, they probably figured they might be able to convince them with nothing new.
Caller, what you pointed out is not the definition of an inconsistency. If anything, it is actually evidence of him being consistent.
I am just saying that on Suzette Martin's case, until the DPP says that what they came with the first time is not what they come with, but what he had the second time. I am
came with the first time, you know, is what they didn't. They did not disclose.
I'll be honest. I really can't see that conclusion that you're coming to out of that example.
And not only that, you as a former practicing attorney working in the government service, I can assure you that a lot of decisions may be made and have to be rethought when additional information comes to light. And I am confident in the DPP. I am confident that whatever came to him, he had said, but you see, now I know the full picture. They didn't give me the full picture. Now I have the full picture. I cannot go ahead.
The implication is right. He had new information. Why would a situation where having new information change his position is going to influence the police thinking, oh, well, without new information, we could get him to change his mind? That doesn't make any sense. And more importantly, nobody could say right now what even the potential charges would be. The UN, let me just, to close the show, the United Nations Regional Center for Peace, Disarmament and Development in Latin America, they still have a scanned copy, so it's not a PDF file, you can't search it for terms, but prohibited weapons is near the top, and the definition of prohibited weapons based on their copy is similar to the copy that was previously available on the Attorney General and website. Automatic firearms, artillery, grenades, and let me just...
It's three things.
I want to just make sure, where's the artillery definition? Artillery means any cannon, howitzer, mortar, or flamethrower, not big gun, not big rifle, right? So artillery, automatic firearm, grenade, bomb, other like missile, or any weapon designed to discharge a noxious liquid gas or other thing, right? Nothing even hints at sniper rifle. So right now, unless there's an updated copy and there are amendments, because
you have to go to the house,
right? No, maybe there's an amendment somewhere for sniper rifle that we can't find, right? But then why did the Attorney General's website only have something outdated? The UN has something that defines it as similar. And according to multiple police officers, sniper rifles are not illegal.
We're not taking sides. Let us be careful about
the key is we don't even know potentially what Euler would be charged with.
For the Commissioner of Police, this whole show, my intervention today was about the challenges to our constitutional democracy that we are seeing in various avenues, and to those who can spell, they can read. And if they don't want to read it, that's their choice.
And here's the thing. Well, maybe it was just not reported, but we didn't hear anything about the police going back to the DPP about Major Best being rearrested. Right?
It's true.
We didn't hear that. Now, again, it could be that it was done, but it wasn't highlighted in the reports. Or maybe I just didn't read it. Maybe I just didn't read it.
Maybe I didn't
read it. Maybe I didn't read it. But what we're hearing, the headlines were about going to the DPP about Euler. But we're not even told what she did. And there is a world where, yes, the SSA, it might have been wrong and potentially even illegal for them to be in possession of sniper rifles. But as so far, no one can actually say where in law the commissioner would have breached the law by allowing the importation of rifles. I think
maybe that's why they can't get
the
particulars.
one gray area is the question about silencers, or rather, technically speaking, suppressors. But given that I don't have the PDF, I would have to read through the UN's copy, as it is a scanned copy, to see if there's anything that says on this copy with regards to suppressors, which I believe should be legal, or should be prohibited, rather. So if that's the case, because it's a component, so I'm not entirely sure how that technicality works out. So with that said, we are way over time. I want to thank all the callers for calling in and having their say. At the end of the day, this all points to one thing: a lack of transparency with how the country is being run. That's basically it.
And democracy at risk.
Because
that's what
of that.
I see. So, or not really because of that, because of the young thing, because of calling him all of that is lack of transparency. Connect those dots.
All that is lack. So, folks, thank you, Karen, Mr. Sheriff, for joining me once again. Remember to make today a good day, as Mr. Shaw would always say. Stay safe. We should all try to have allegiance to our republic before all else. Who amongst us will put that into practice? That will be a question that we will have to continually answer until we get ourselves out of the doldrums. Until then, it's nice to be nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN